Thanks so much for coming. So, who had heard of this event before today? Yeah? Excellent. And who came spontaneously at the last minute because the internet told them? Yeah? Excellent. Well, it's wonderful to have you all here. I just want to start with an acknowledgement of country. So I want to acknowledge that we're in the lands of the Kurnai people and pay respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. And also thank my very wonderful friend Matt Langdon for hosting me at his bookshop. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. So a long time ago, Matt Langdon approached me to come and talk to people about what I do. And this was in very far lands of America, and it was about 5 years ago, I think. And ever since then, we've been plotting deviously to get me over here in Victoria so that I could sort of share what I do more locally. And I didn't think that was ever going to happen because I've been living in Canada for the last 4 years. And then last year, the pandemic changed everything, and I came back to Melbourne, and here I am now. So yeah, it's definitely a surprise for me, as much as sort of anyone else who knew me, because I left Australia when I was 18, and I decided that I wanted to go and work in the movies and be adventurous and get involved with all the creative things that I'd sort of seen on the behind-the-scenes documentaries of Lord of the Rings, which came out when I was a 15-year-old in school. And it was such a big deal for me because up until that point I sort of was torn sort of between doing art and doing drama, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was up in Sydney. I was up in like the Blue Mountains kind of Penrith area. I don't know if you heard about the floods, all the flooding that's happened recently. Yeah, so that's exactly where I grew up. It's that whole like basin. Yeah, so it was a really great sort of place to grow up because there's a lot of arts in the Sydney area. Like my school had a lot of arts programs going, which was really awesome. And I think that's why my mum wanted me to go to that school, was because she knew that I was really creative and she just wanted to like encourage me. So props to my mum. Woo! Yeah, it definitely gave me the opportunity to sort of go full blast in a lot of things. The unfortunate thing was I had absolutely no idea how to make a career of that. So, hey there, welcome. I'm just going to check my thing's working. I think it's working. If anyone's in the live stream, hi. Say hi in the chat, please do. Hey there. So yeah, I had all these really, really awesome opportunities, for which I'm so grateful. But I also had no idea what to sort of do with my life because, you know, you get an idea at school what an arts career looks like. It's sort of like you see these people working in, I don't know, either arts teachers or, I'm trying to think back what we even thought art was, like going to like the National Gallery and seeing all this like really contemporary art that I didn't really get, because I was a huge fantasy nerd, absolutely, like from like this big, pretty much from as young as I can remember, and I was really into making worlds and designing stuff, and yeah, and so the only thing that I could really see for myself was the film industry, because Peter Jackson came out with all those behind the scenes documentaries in Lord of the Rings. So as a 15-year-old kid who's like staying up for hours at night writing the backstory for the different races of my fantasy world, which had all these like feuding factions, does it sound familiar? Yeah. So at that time I hadn't got into like Dungeons and Dragons or LARPing or anything, but I was playing computer games as well. And I think that's what gave me the idea that you could like world build. So I was into Baldur's Gate. And yeah, I had 6 CDs. It was a 6 CD set back in the days when we actually put CDs into computers to play games. And yeah, I used to stay up late playing Baldur's Gate because I was addicted to playing fantasy games. And I also, I guess I just hadn't really seen anything like that before. I hadn't seen like the Dungeons and Dragons fantasy world at that time, and now it's such a big thing. It's become really big on the internet. There's lots of live streams. There's real famous people doing, you know, comedy shows and stuff. It's a lot more accessible, I think, if you have an internet connection. But for me, growing up in the bush in Colo, which is not that dissimilar to Gippsland, it's a really, really similar kind of like ruggedness to the mountain areas. Yeah, that was what I had. So yeah, I kind of didn't really know what the heck to do with myself. And then I saw these behind the scenes documentaries for the Lord of the Rings, which is massively up my street. So I was seeing all these people making creatures and costumes and miniatures, and the guys in New Zealand, the guys and girls in New Zealand did an absolutely amazing job putting that together, and kind of almost half killed themselves putting the three movies on. But it was a real turning point for the New Zealand film industry, and it certainly put that on my radar. Now you may notice that I just said New Zealand, like a Kiwi. What's a kid from Sydney saying New Zealand? It's because when I left school I went straight to New Zealand and was like, I'm here! I don't know what to do. So I put myself in New Zealand, which we're very lucky as Australians to be able to do that, because it's a back and forth kind of like, you know, you can come to my country and live here, and you know, after 2 years you can get support from the government kind of thing going on in New Zealand, which was amazing. And it made it very easy for me as a 18-year-old leaving school for the first time to sort of be like, yeah, I'm going to follow this passion that I have, and sort of have this like very rough shape of in my head of what that might look like. I just kind of wanted to be around all that. And I guess I need to fast forward all the kind of times that it didn't work out that I was following my passion. I think the biggest thing was that I was just really persistent, and I just kept circling back to, okay, this is still the thing that I want to do, and just kind of put myself in the place where those opportunities could happen to me. And I had a lot of people looking out for me as well, which is awesome. And it's, when I say that, I mean it's sort of like people were very generous with wanting to share what it is they do, because they were passionate too. And that doesn't always happen in the creative industries. So I do want to definitely acknowledge those people and the gift of their generosity to me as this very enthusiastic kid that loved dragons and making stuff and had no idea what I was doing. So how did I go from that to working on over 20 blockbuster Hollywood movies and, you know, traveling the world and stuff? I sometimes don't know. I sort of look back and I'm like, is this really my life? Like, I don't understand how it is that I went from this kid in the bush with all these dreams to like just having this amazing opportunities and experiences, except that I put myself out there and made myself uncomfortable with the places that I put myself. And doing that it's not easy for somebody who is, I guess, neurodiverse. I'm definitely neurodiverse. Like, I don't know exactly in what way, but I know that my brain doesn't work like normal. I said normal, that's not right. I know that my brain doesn't work like people who are mainstream. So I can see that for myself I needed to sort of do things that made sense to me based on professionalism. So I aspired to make myself as professional as possible so that when I was picked up for opportunities, I was always going to fit in a set role. And that was such a gift, because you can be unskilled. Hey, welcome, come grab a seat. So yeah, I kind of just pivoted on this idea that all these people who worked in movies worked really, really dedicatedly, and they pushed themselves, and I think I role modeled on that as being my personal thing, that I wanted to just be as excellent as possible and kind of just constantly work on that for myself. So even though I didn't have a lot of experience when I was put in those circumstances, you know, like catch this ball and do something with it, like figuratively, that's this metaphorical ball of opportunity, because I conducted myself in a way that made me easy to work with, I was teachable. And that's probably the greatest thing that happened for me, was that I made myself useful. I made myself professional and useful, and I hope I didn't think I knew everything, because I was surrounded by all these amazing people who had just extraordinary levels of skill, and I got over my own ego to be like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. Here, please teach me. I would love to learn. So I kind of made a career of being like an assistant almost. I was assisting all these really extraordinary people, and I got to work with all my heroes. I got to work with those people who made Lord of the Rings. Those are my colleagues. Those are my friends and my housemates, which is phenomenal. And by the time that happened, I had also gotten past being a fan myself. So, like, I'm still definitely a fan of all their work and all their movies, but I was there in a professional context. I wasn't there being like, you know, like, I'm in the most amazing place in the world, it's like Disneyland. And I certainly was like that at the beginning. Like, absolutely. I was totally a kid in a candy shop when I went to Weta Workshop for the first time, and just saw all these amazing things that they're doing. So I'm referencing stuff that maybe some of you don't know about it. Have you heard of Weta Workshop in New Zealand? Yeah, there's some nodding. Cool. Okay, so for folks who don't know about Weta, it is a design studio and a manufacturing studio, and what they do is they build imaginary things. So if you can create anything and you have a team of really amazing artisans to do it, you're going to go to Weta. They're like the go-to dream team for Hollywood movies these days. So they've done Avatar, they've done like superhero movies, they've done Mad Max, they've done Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all these like big name movies, all the special effects of those movies. So special effects is actually, it's kind of a confusing term because when you say it, folks think, oh, computer effects, you know, like animation. That's visual effects. Special effects is when you do things for the camera. So it's like magic for the just live recording. So you're doing like illusions and stuff. So if you've got to have something like explode or look like a car crashed or look like a person turned into an alien, but you don't have a computer handy, and you have a team of like artists basically who are going to make that happen, that's a special effect. And it could be as simple as like someone got a blood wound, or someone's got vampire teeth, or someone else has got like, I don't know, horns growing and they've got to grow on camera. Like, you're going to have people who are creating that illusion for the camera, and they're going to figure out how to do it. And it's just the most amazing thing because it's no two stunts that are the same. So I started in a career in the film industry with a team of special effects artists, and that's what I became. I became a special effects technician. Which, yeah, it's really amazing still to say it, because what that did was that gave me so many skills and so many boosts to my own artistic ability. So to be clear, in the film industry, the way that the film industry works is normally you have different departments working on things. So you have like your actors, you have your costume department, you have your behind the scenes like lighting, crew, rigging, sound, etc. And they're all broken up into different departments. Special effects teams normally will work with the stunt team on set. They'll build everything on set, but in New Zealand it's different because they have a workshop that's specially for special effects, so it's like a design studio. So what happened with us was we would have films come in-house, and we would do like 3 or 4 films at the same time, but we weren't actually going out onto set. We were sort of just doing, you know, taking something, like doing a commission almost, like if you're an artist doing a commission, and you get like, you know, someone wants their D&D character made into like a little figure or something, and then suddenly you've got like 4 people doing that. That's 4 different clients. Same idea, except just on a different scale. So I was working on all these really amazing movies, half of which unfortunately didn't end up being released. So I can't really talk about them outside of my crew. But I was learning so much from just the level of like volume that we would get in. Sort of like you never really knew what you were going to be doing. Hey there, welcome. Come on in. Just going to check this is working. Looks like it's working. There's one viewer. Hey. Yeah, come grab seats. Make yourself at home. Thanks for coming at such short notice. So we would have all these different sort of films coming through the shop. We'd have like one particular prop for this movie, and then, you know, the costume for another movie. And I got kind of tossed around between departments because I didn't have a specialized skill set when I joined the workshop, which was great, absolutely great. Because when I joined, I didn't really know what I was good at. I knew that I was good at designing, and I knew that I was good at being helpful, but I didn't really have a fixed kind of like, this is my thing. You know, I'm good at leather, I'm good at building stuff, I'm good at machines. Like, I didn't have that, whereas a lot of folks at the workshop did have that, so they were kind of in different departments. It was really great, because what that meant was that I got to kind of just learn from everybody and just get this really wide experience from all these different people. And what that taught me was how to think about design. Because at my heart, I'm a designer. I wanted to go into the film industry to design things. And originally, when I very first turned up to Weta with my little portfolio and showed what I'd done, I was given the warm letdown, like, this is great, keep it up. But I definitely didn't have the level that I needed to have if I was going to enter the industry as a designer. And after 4 years of being exposed to materials, production processes, making stuff with my hands, seeing how things work from beginning to end, I absolutely understand that. And I feel like it was a real gift for me to be able to have that practical materials experience. Because I tell you guys, I was like drawing from a young age. I didn't have any material experience. I love the idea of making things, but I had no idea. I had no skills. I was just, the skill was pen and paper, as I think a lot of people's is. Like, that's sort of what you kind of retreat to when you know, living in fantasy in your mind, and you have all these like really cool ideas. It's like the most easy thing to draw. So I was always drawing from a young age. I was like, I think I was about 2 or 3, and my mum just couldn't tear me away from pen and paper. So yeah, naturally when I joined the industry, I was like, I want to be a designer, because I've been, you know, creating stuff in my mind for so many years. I've been creating all these worlds and stuff, but I also recognized, like I said, I didn't have any particular skill except for just passion. So putting myself in a place where I was flexible and teachable was the best thing for me, because it meant that I was useful and I could get into all these different positions and opportunities, because I was open to being like, oh sure, I've never riveted a tank before, but yeah, show me what to do, you know, like just that kind of flexibility. It really does make so much more possible. So as you can see, I've got a little display here. This is just a few things that I've got with me, part of which I'm working on right now, and part of which I've done already. So I just want to explain what we're kind of looking at here. Got a couple of illustrations that I did last year. We've got 2 mannequins, well, 1 mannequin and an armor stand. These are costumes that I myself wear. I've either made or sourced, I've made or sourced those materials, or found other people who could make them better than me, put them together. And then at the back I've got a little bit of a tool display. So these are the kind of things that normally would be hidden, because they're the things that would make other things happen. But these are so important to share for me now, because I had no idea how to use any of these when I joined the creative industries. I was like this is my thing, you know? So what have we got? What do you want to start with? I mean, I'm here for you all. What do you want me to talk about? There's a lot going on here.
The armor.
The armor? Okay. Woo! Thank you for that fine fellow in the back. This is a sort of replica armor. This is 15th century medieval armor, and I have it because I fight in armor regularly, and I do this because I'm very passionate about sword fighting and everything to do with sword fighting as well. And I started just being excited about swords, but then the more that you put yourself in places where people are doing sword fighting, the more you want to have good stuff and look good. It's kind of like it's, you know, never ending really. It's like character leveling, except in person. So this is the result of many years of character leveling for me, and it's a beautiful set of armor from Quebec, where I was living, made by a blacksmith over there. And it is on an armor stand, which I have been building for somebody else. I've made 2. This one's a copy of the other type. And I'm particularly proud of this because everything about it is upcycled. So I should just leave it. Okay, there you go. There's the armor. Bring it around. You guys can touch it if you want. Yeah, go for it. Give it a wiggle. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, fair enough. Yeah.
Sam, how hard are you getting hit in that armour?
Good question. So the sports game that I usually use it for, it's not full contact. It's demonstrated contact. So like it's a sports game. So if you imagine what's reasonable in a sport when you're shoving somebody, like you know that you've been shoved, but you're not trying to put them on the floor. I do also do martial arts, and when I'm not wearing armour, we're practicing to throw people. We're practicing to actually kind of put them down, but we're doing it in a way that's a training way. So I can practice to hit someone at full strength, but I don't need to do that in a sparring match because I want to go take my friend to the pub afterwards, and, not the hospital. So yeah, with this particular one, I would wear it for a sports game, and it would be taking about that much. So yeah, that's probably the hardest I would ever get hit. I hope. Yeah. I'll leave it out so you guys can have a wee look after the talk is over. So what I have been building is this guy, which is completely upcycled. So everything about this is from recycled or rubbish materials. The post is, I got it from the tip. This was an old piece of timber that was too twisted for someone to use, so I cut it in half so that the twist was not visible. I used PVA glue to seal it because I didn't have any varnish. So this is actually PVA glue and it looks fine. I know, right? It absolutely works. The steel bits are actually from the bottom of an IKEA hat stand that I took apart. So this is the top of the hat stand, and I've just like reorganized it. And then I've done, do you recognize what these are? I know it looks terrible, it looks very PG. But does anyone recognize the great Australian sport?
Yeah, it's cricket.
Cricket wicket, yeah, there we go. So I use cricket wickets for these and these. These are chopsticks. And then at the top, I haven't assembled it yet because I still need to draw this properly, but this is actually half a rolling pin. And this is going to hold the helmet. So yeah, I've got, this is also upcycled. This is from an old couch, this leather. This is, like I stripped the couch myself. It was left on the side of the road and someone had cut a huge hole in it, and it's like this beautiful leather. So I meticulously stripped the couch of all the leather and have now upholstered it. And this is from the cushion of my friend who no longer wanted the cushion and saved the fabric because it was really beautiful. So still in the process of being finished. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to put some fabric, like stuffing in there, like what you put in a pillow. So it's just got a little padding, and then I'm going to stitch it up, and then it's done. So yeah, and this is a very practical thing. This is not glamorous at all, but I'm really happy with it because I think it does show just how much I have learned skill-wise, and coming from, a background of just drawing, going from pen and paper to being able to build a fully functional piece like this, which is going to last a really long time, out of fully upcycled materials. Like to me, that's a bit of a growth journey. I learned how to upholster. This is upholstering, the process of stitching fabric around pillows and things. I learned to upholster on the set of X-Men because the X-Jet, the jet that the X-Men ride in, had all these beautiful foam seats that needed upholstery on them. But the job was so complicated, and the detail that had to happen, they needed one dedicated person to do that because the people who had the experience in the department were responsible for all these other things as well. So they needed someone who had the madness to be able to actually just do the job and take charge of it, and I was hired for that, even though I'd never upholstered before, ever. Never did I think I was going to, but that became my thing. So they showed me how to do it, and I learned from a guy who builds sports cars, he does like from scratch. He makes, yeah, I know, it's like this crazy set of skills and people who work in special effects. And so he had all the knowledge of how to do like the interiors of all these really gorgeous cars. And he taught me how to do the upholstery, which was this really, really technical job and very meticulous. And I watched X-Men before coming to this talk. I hadn't actually seen the film that I worked on until the other day when Matt and I were talking about it. And I finally watched it in the first 10 minutes. And I'm looking at Professor Xavier's chair and this tiny imperfection on the bubble on the back of his chair. I was like, no! I'm fine. I'm okay. It was years ago. But you get the idea. Like, that was chairs were my babies. I was not the only person to work on the chairs. That was definitely a team effort. But the actual upholstery part and making sure that they went off beautiful, that was might be a little attached. Anyway, no, it was a really, really fantastic job. I also got to be the butt double for Jennifer Lawrence's character. Because, no spoilers about the movie, but there's a scene where all of them are suspended in the air with when Quicksilver's running around doing his thing. So, fun fact, I didn't know this before working on X-Men, and I'm absolutely sure I can talk about this because it's been put on the internet in a behind-the-scenes video. When he's doing all those scenes, that's actually for camera. So all the actors are pretending to be frozen. They're acting to be frozen. It's the simplest trick in the book, but I never realized. I always thought it was just computer effects until I joined the team. And actually what they're doing is they're just pretending. They're on stage being like, yeah, pretty much. And because they're shooting long scenes and stuff, the actors all need support frames when they're holding themselves in the air. So they're like basically having like body casts underneath their clothing, holding them up so that they can be suspended in these like lengthy positions. Yeah, so it's like all these really cool tricks that you would never think of when you're watching a movie as to how they achieved it, because you shouldn't. If you're watching a movie, you should not be thinking about how they did it, unless you're me. But even I get like pulled in, so that's kind of what I do is all this like trickery and magic and stuff for the films, and I usually learn from other people who have the know-how to do it. So yeah, it's like you kind of have to have a little bit of everything, because when you're problem solving, like how would you problem solve that? How would you hold someone in the air? There's like probably 6 different ways you could do that. But what's the best solution? Whoever's on the team, you're going to put your heads together and be like, okay, I think we'll do it this way. And you try it. And there's no wrong answer really, because if it works, it works. And better still, if it works and it's, you know, on time, under budget, you win. Yeah. But no one really sees what you do when you're like creating that process and you're like coming up with all these ideas to like do that. Yeah. I'm going to take just a tiny wee break because
we still haven't heard about who are you butt double for again?
yeah,
you missed
oh,
Jennifer butt double. And
Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, sorry.
You went into suspending people in air.
Yes.
From butt doubling.
That's right. Thank you. Good save. Jennifer Lawrence, because she and I had exactly the same dimensions. And I was the only person on the team. Other than.
Start looking at you differently.
Oh, hey, look, it was an honor. That's all I can say. Yeah, I joined the team and they're like, hey, Sam, you've got the same like physicality as Jennifer. And in the very first like week I was working with them, they're like basically putting me in this thing that takes the impression of my ass. And I'm like, it's a really weird way to get to know me, guys. Like, you know, I feel like we could have just done beers. Yeah, it was pretty funny. And the only other person that was the same height and like size was this absolutely terrific chick called Kelsey, who basically takes apart cars and puts them back together so that they can like do flips and stuff when they're on cue. So that she's like the mechanic person. She works with the mechanic team. So they'll do like, have you ever seen a car flip in the air and you wondered how they do it? There's heaps of ways that they can do it, but one of the things they'll do is they'll drop something onto the road that hits it so that the car goes in the other direction and like fires up in the air. It's so cool. I never learned to do that. I just had that team in the same department area, so I got to kind of like, you get it done. Yeah. Yeah. It's like Jennifer Lawrence.
Same
butt double for Jennifer Lawrence. guys, welcome to the stream. I just wanted to make sure it was still working because I don't have a tech person today. I usually am the tech person as well. So, I was saying earlier that when I was in New Zealand, all the films and everything, they would send their requests to us and we would work on them in the shop, which meant I never actually got to see on set how things were like going ahead, unless it was done locally like The Hobbit was. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to work on set on The Hobbit, but I certainly did see what was going down the road to Peter Jackson's studio. And I think there were a couple of other films. Yes, there were. There were a couple of other films in New Zealand that were shot there, but they didn't end up getting released. So I got to see those on set. I got to work on set, but I didn't. For the most part, I was mostly working in the shop. And then I moved overseas. I moved to Canada back in 2013 because, well, there were a lot of reasons. It was a good time to do it for me. But the biggest impact for me was that I'd never actually worked outside of the safety of, you know, that crew at Weta Workshop and the design teams. I had a little bit of an idea of what to expect, but it was very different because everything over in North America was done, you know, big departments, like this is your one job and this is what you do. We put you in this position. And because I'd been working in all these different departments, kind of jumping around, being a gopher or an assistant or, you know, just helping all these much better people than myself, I didn't really know where to put myself. And I started listing, you know, this is all the things I can do, and they look at me and they're like, how can you do all these different things? How is it that you are so diverse? And I was like, well, in New Zealand we have to be, because the industry is much smaller. So people do have to multitask because, you know, you don't have a big enough industry to support people being in all these different jobs, and that's just their one thing. They have to just kind of multitask. And that's what I'd gotten used to, and I didn't realize how unusual it was till I went to North America, and everyone's just like, this is my one job, and if I really, really love it, I'm going to do another job, and they kind of just can make a career of just doing one thing. So I put myself in, I put myself out there as a special effects technician, but I also got I got work as a sculptor in the sculpting department. I had no idea what to expect. Sculpting, I mean, I had done sculpting, but I didn't understand what it looks like on a film scale. It's absolutely huge. It's like sculpting in a film context is when you are doing scenery that the carpenters can't do. So carpenters will go in and they'll build things just like what you'd expect, you know, builders would do. Straight lines, set angles, that kind of thing. Sculptors will go in after the carpenters and they'll do all the like organic shapes. So anything that's like broken down, or rocks, or trees, or sculptures, like statues and things, like that's what the sculptor's job is. So it's like, it's the more creative aspect of building. It's like building, but not. So I got work on Warcraft, which was the movie adaptation of the same game. And I worked on set for Warcraft because we were building, even though predominantly the movie was CG, all the sets were real. So we had actors on set, human actors and people playing orcs with, you know, they were wearing costumes, and then the computer would add to that, but they still needed physical sets to be in. Because I don't know if you've ever seen anyone doing acting in front of a blue screen or a green screen. Yeah, it's not great, unless you have the most amazing special effects team in the world, and then that costs so much money, and it's much easier just to build a set. And then once the people who are making that film have that footage, they can add stuff to it. Because, you know, you've got something to start with. You don't have to build everything from scratch. So I was on the team building the City of Stormwind for Warcraft, and it was pretty phenomenal. It was also an enormous job, and it was done in winter and very tiring. And I got quite sick after that job, unfortunately, because I wasn't aware of things that I could have been doing to keep myself safe. So I don't blame anyone for that, but it was a learning lesson for me about things that I could be doing to protect myself better in my work. And I'm talking about using PPE, so personal protective equipment. I don't remember someone telling me the hazards of the product I was using. They probably did, but I didn't understand. and I got quite sick. So I was actually sick for 2 years after that job, and part of that was a mental sickness as well. I just was so defeated that I didn't feel like I could work. It took me 2 years to get back into the game, and after that I went and got work on X-Men, fortunately. But it is something really important to bring up for me, because I have mentioned how I started, how I was really passionate and enthused about just getting involved and being open to opportunities. And I think at some point in the process I missed understanding the hazards of the materials and the environments. And I was much younger as well, as I was in my 20s when I got into the film industry. So your body can take a lot more of a, pounding, a lot more abuse. But I do see a lot of young people coming into the industry who don't realise that the things we work with are toxic. The things we work with, like noise will wreck you. If you don't cover your ears, you're going to lose your hearing by the time you're 50. Like it's the same in any construction industry. It's just that I think I just had a little bit of a blind spot when it came to the film industry, because it's just you're doing such really cool and amazing things. But I want to put it out there as something that's really important, is, be the dork who's wearing the protective equipment, because it's your body, your body. And a lot of people working on their own passionate stuff in their own rooms, like their workshops from home, people doing cosplay, I don't think they understand the danger of exposing themselves to some of the toxins that they're breathing in, like this stuff. I bring it in as a little demo. You don't want to breathe this in too much. It's not good for you. You want to have ventilation. You want to have some kind of airflow in your space when you're doing gluing, because even if you might not feel sick immediately, that just builds up in your body. It gives you sickness over a long period of time. People doing amazing things with foam, like cosplayers, they do these sculptures and stuff, and I look at their workspaces, and it's like I have physically experienced the effects of foam in my body. It made me sick. I was using foam, and I look at them and I think, I really, really hope someone helps you set up a better ventilation for your setup, because I don't want you to be doing this and then this is the thing that makes you ill, because for a lot of people, making stuff is their outlet, it's their creative expression. So yeah, it's really worth spending time to learn how to safely manage the materials that you're working with. Yeah. And I don't want people to limit themselves, because I think it's more important to have the passion for the thing and then figure it out as you go, than to be like, oh, I'm so scared of this that it might kill me. Well, anything might kill you, breathing might kill you. Yeah, I shouldn't make jokes. I'm sure there's someone that's died from breathing, but you get my point. It's like, if you're passionate about something, be professional as well. Give yourself the credit to become good at it. Don't downplay it. Really just give yourself that allowance to be like, no, this is something that I care enough to be good at, Like that's you deserve that. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. Whatever your creative outlet is. Treat it with the esteem of the thing that makes you happy, But it should also be the thing that keeps you well and healthy. Yeah. Brought to you today by KS Bond. Cool. How are we going for time, Matt?
It is 4:47.
45
I should let
minutes.
everyone know too, I should have done this before. There's toilets out the back there if you need.
Cool. So, I also have a pirate outfit, as you may have noticed. This is because at some point along the way I discovered LARPing, and I don't know how I hadn't discovered it earlier, because it pretty much married all of my passions into one, which were making cool things for fantasy worlds. I have been playing a game in Quebec, which is pretty amazing. It's called Bicolline. I was living in Montreal for the last 4 years, about 4 years before the pandemic, pre-pandemic era. And Montreal has this extraordinarily high community of LARPers. Like, I'm talking 12,000 LARPers on record, active LARPers in the province of Quebec. And because it's a French...
people in the room that don't know what LARPing
Oh, hey, so LARPing, yes, I beg pardon. LARPing, it's an acronym, it stands for Live Action Role Play, which is something that developed out